Listen up, bros and broettes. Hit that subscribe button before you click off this video. Lots of cool stuff to check out on this channel. Make sure you ring that bell. Every time you ring the bell, a vegan cries. Let's do this. Spooky Saturday night continues. No Nukes Top 5 this week, so we're going with Mr. Nightmare.
It was a request by a subscriber in the comments.
Who should have been in our Discord.
Yeah, get in our Discord, guys.
Go in our Discord. And make sure that you definitely hit the subscribe and the little bell, because it would appear that we're getting throttled somewhat. And I'm not certain why. Maybe they don't like my Fauci did it shirt. I don't know.
Who knows?
Our own personal nightmares. Dealing with 2023 butthurt people.
Snowflakes galore.
Regardless, we're going to find out 5 disturbing true home stories. So I guess this is people telling their stories of they found a cockroach.
I've never heard of
Freak 'em out.
Mr. Nightmare before, so I'm kind of interested.
I have no clue, but this was a request, so we do honor our request. So let's check out Mr. Nightmare. Let's do this.
I'm 30 years old, and I share a house with my sister. It's a 2-floor house, a mother-daughter house, meaning it has 2 kitchens. My sister takes the downstairs, I take the upstairs. My sister isn't home a lot because she often stays with her boyfriend who lives 20 miles away. Like I said, I'm 30. I shouldn't let being home alone ever freak me out. But, admittedly, sometimes it does. This happened on a night that I was home alone in my living room watching a scary movie.
You're 30 living with your
My part
sister.
of the house is an open layout, so the living room, dining room, and kitchen are all one big space. My couch is in the middle of the space, so as I watch TV on the couch, my back is to a large part of the room behind me. So for those a little more easily spooked, it wouldn't be the most comfortable place to be sitting alone watching a scary movie. I'll admit, as I watched in the dark room with nothing but the light from the TV to cancel the darkness of the room, I found myself glancing over my shoulder a lot. I like to think I'm not the only 30-year-old male that does that. But anyway, after
might
the
be,
movie,
buddy.
I brushed my teeth, turned off all the lights in the house, then went to sleep. My sleep lasted for about 2 hours. I woke up around 1 a.m., and I wasn't sure why I woke up at first. Then I heard a voice downstairs.
No.
It sounded like my sister. It sounded like she was inside the house, so it's not like she was calling for me to open the door. But still, I knew it was my sister's voice. I didn't know what she was yelling up to me though, but I was still groggy and not thinking straight. All I could think was that she must have been calling for me, or arguing with her boyfriend. So I got out of bed and went into the pitch black hall.
Oh,
I turned on the hallway lights and then made my way through the living room and heard my sister's voice again from downstairs. Now I could understand her to be saying my name. I made my way downstairs in the dark, yelling back at her, "What is it?" I looked for the light switch in the foyer downstairs, but couldn't find it. I'm not lying when I say I was groggy as hell. I walked down her little hallway towards her kitchen, find a light switch, and flick it on. The light in the kitchen lights up her little apartment, including her living room. The light starts off dim and needs time to brighten up, but I still saw that there was no one down there. Not her, not her boyfriend. I went to her bedroom, but it was empty. I called her name really loudly one time. No one called back, but shortly after I yelled, I heard something drop to the floor in my sister's bedroom, which I had just checked, and it was empty. I went back up the stairs like a little kid and went back to my bed to where my phone was. I tried to call her a few times, but she didn't pick up. I had myself locked in my room, wondering if I had just hallucinated all of that. Eventually I fell asleep, and in the morning I woke up to text from my sister asking why I called her at 1 a.m. I asked her if she was home last night, and she told me no, she was currently staying at her boyfriend's house. I went downstairs to her bedroom to see what may have fallen down on the floor, but there was not a single object on the floor that could have made that noise. I'm led to believe I hallucinated everything I heard that night, but that's what I want to believe, because the alternative would be much more horrific. But I've never really hallucinated anything else, or had any kind of sleep disorders. So how vividly I heard my sister's voice and that sound in her room really freaks me out.
Can't really blame you there, buddy.
So when your sister's arguing with her boyfriend, it's the same way it sounds when she calls your name? Because he implied that.
I was left home alone
It
a
was
lot
one or
as a
the
kid,
other.
just due to the fact that my
Did
mom
he?
was single
'Cause he
for a
just said
good
that
chunk of
she
my
was
upbringing, and she
calling
worked as an
out for
RN on a
him.
crappy RN schedule, and my brother went away to college.
He
This was
said
a
it.
night that my mom was working
Okay.
an overnight. It was a weekend night, so I had this girl Molly over who I was talking to, and she hung out for a
Hey.
while. We watched a couple movies and whatnot, and eventually she had
And
to go home
whatnot.
because her parents don't like her out late, so I was left alone to hold down the fort. I continued to watch TV in my room and bed. My bedroom is upstairs next to the backyard, so when someone dragged one of the chairs on the deck outside, I heard it. I got up and looked out the window, and I saw someone sitting on one of the deck chairs down below. I called Molly's name thinking it was her. After all, she'd only left under 10 minutes ago. Whoever it was looked up at me, but it wasn't Molly. I immediately pulled away from the window to hide. That was not anybody I recognized. Not in the darkness, at least. I texted a few close friends in our group chat if it was one of them messing with me. The ones who answered all said no, and asked what I was talking about. I didn't really believe any of my friends would come to my house to mess with me like that anyway. Scared shitless, but still curious, I slowly walked back over to the window to look down again, and that person was still sitting in the chair, looking up at my window. It was a he,
Bruh.
that much was clear, and he definitely saw me. I hurried away from the window again to turn off the TV. I sat in my bed in a ball basically, with my arms wrapped around my knees. I waited in darkness for a while. I didn't even want to turn my phone screen on because I was scared he'd see the light. I didn't even want to move because the window was opened and I feared that he'd hear any movement I made. I wanted him to assume I was just no longer in the bedroom. I waited enough time. It had to be a solid 5 minutes of just sitting there. I highly doubted that man outside could still be there.
He was still
I
there.
finally mustered up the courage to get up and look out the window. I felt a little part of me die inside when I saw he was still down there, looking up at my
Staring
window.
at the window. I knew
Instead
it.
of running away from the window again,
Go
I
see
tried to
who
be
it
brave and
is.
said down to him, "What do you want?" I then noticed his shoulders started to go up and down as if he were laughing really hard, but he didn't make any kind of audible laughing
He
sounds
would
at
not be
first,
laughing really
until
hard
I
at
heard
my
a
house.
slight whistling sound coming from him. It seemed like he was laughing so hard that he was wheezing. I asked him to please go away, then walked away from the window again.
That's why he's
I
laughing.
went back to my bed. I was scared to call the police for some reason. I left my room and sat at the top of the stairway listening. The back door was being pushed. He was trying to get into
Nay,
the
nay.
house. I ran back to my room to hide again. I was 14. I didn't know what else to do.
Then it dawned on me.
Eventually, I heard the front
Call
door's door not being
911.
fiddled with, and the man trying to push the front door open as well. He gave up quickly, thank God. I closed my bedroom window and curtains. If our doors weren't locked, I could have been killed easily. I was skinny and weak when I was 14, and definitely not a fighter. I didn't leave my room again that night until my mom got home around 9. I told her what happened, and her reaction was angry at me for not calling 911, and in hindsight, that was very stupid of me. One of the many things I did, or rather didn't do at a young age, that I questioned greatly.
You literally told him, I'm in this bedroom. I'm going to stay in this bedroom. So I'm here. If you need me, I'm in this bedroom. Yeah, it wasn't bright.
This was the story of how I almost died as a young kid, home alone.
Oh,
And possibly
great.
the most intense night of my life with way too much going on. We're a family of 5. I was 10 at the time. My older brother was 14.
Do I have
my little
epilepsy
sister
or
was
is that
5.
like
No,
flashing?
that's
It
flashing.
was a Friday night. My brother was out with his friends causing trouble, clearly, because a dreaded phone call came to my parents. All I remember was I was in my room playing a Star Wars video game when I heard my mom start freaking out crying. I got really scared and hurried to see what was wrong. My mom was on the phone with the hospital, calling to inform my parents that my brother had gotten hit by a car. Obviously, we were all shaken and really scared. My brother's leg was broken, but I don't know what else was said on the phone. All I know is my parents hurried to get their coats on and got my little sister from her room and asked me if I was okay to stay home alone. I said yes, and they hurried out to the car and left. I was of course really worried for my brother, but I really didn't want to go to the hospital and see him in any kind of bad condition. I don't think my parents wanted me or my sister to either, but they didn't want to leave my 5-year-old sister home without them. It's worth mentioning my brother recovered just fine, as his injury is no longer relevant to the story, other than it being the reason why I was left home alone on a Friday night. Before my dad left, he was trying to calm down my mom, telling her he was going to be okay. So seeing my dad like that made me feel better. I had a feeling my mom was just being overdramatic like any mom would be.
Oh yeah.
I continued
kinda what
playing
we
the Star
do.
Wars game for a couple more hours.
Yeah.
When I heard the front door open, I had my bedroom door closed. By this point, it was easily past midnight and past my bedtime, so I turned off the TV and PlayStation and crawled into my bed with my Game Boy. I tried listening to hear my parents' voices,
Screw it.
maybe hear if my brother was with them or just hear what they were saying, but I didn't hear anything. After a few minutes of not hearing them even come up the stairs, I had a feeling something was wrong. I went to my door and quietly opened it, then walked over to the ledge and banister that overlooked the living room. The lights were off, but there were 3 tall people standing in my living room. They weren't my family. I was so petrified that I was frozen for a second before I could quietly walk back into my room and shut the door as quietly as I could in my trepidation. But it wasn't quiet enough, and I knew it. They had to have heard the door click shut, even if just slightly. I hurried to my closet door, opened it quietly, stepped inside, then shut the door.
That's when you
I
start
had
pulling
myself
out
sitting
all the
behind a
like
bunch
the
of the boxes
marbles
and bags
and
of
the
clothes that I stuffed in
matches
my
and
closet.
start home aloneing
I
it.
was actually pretty covered from view.
Reason
Hammers.
number
It was a short period that felt
192
like forever that I was
why you need an
anticipating my
AR
bedroom door open.
Yeah,
and it didn't.
seriously.
And at that moment, I knew I was going to die.
Not if you had an
I heard
AR-15.
footsteps walk into
Or
the
just
room.
any
I
gun.
couldn't tell how many
Yeah,
people.
but
It may have been
Shotgun
one, it
noise
may have
just
been
scares
2.
people off.
I heard the footsteps
There's
move to my
3 of
bed.
them.
Then I heard
I
my
got something
covers
for
being
all
played
3 of them with that AR.
Then silence. Then more footsteps towards the closet door. Then silence for a few seconds. And then the closet door opened. My heart was in my throat by this point.
It was Dad.
All I did was sit quietly and hold my breath. The door was open for a really long time, but I didn't look up. I didn't move. It had to be a good 20 seconds of silence before the door closed again. Footsteps walked away from the door, then out of the room. I finally looked up, and I just realized, from where I was crouched down behind the bags and boxes, I may have been visible to that person. It wasn't until probably an hour that I heard my parents return. I ran downstairs to them. The front door was left ajar by the people who broke in, and they had stolen a number of valuables from our house. It was a night that just went from bad to worse for our family. My parents were in such a rush when they left for the hospital that they apparently didn't even lock the door. I was lucky to have not been killed or kidnapped.
And 3 people just randomly
I look
walked
back
up
now
and checked it.
really wonder if the person who opened the closet and just stood there for 20 seconds saw me hiding in there. Maybe he was just a guy that came to rob a house, not to kidnap or hurt a child. Or maybe he just didn't see me, and I just narrowly escaped death or injury.
He was confident you didn't see him.
Yeah.
So he felt he's not looking up. He's not looking at us. Just leave him be.
I was home alone for an entire week one time when I was still a teenager living with my parents, which was a rare occasion since my parents don't go out a lot. My mom's rich friend Patty invited my parents on a trip that she was paying
Patty.
for. I'm an only child, so I was left alone in the house. We lived in Newark, Ohio, which is in Licking County. Yes, our county was actually called Licking County. My parents' old house had woods in the backyard and was on some quiet road that only a few cars would pass per day usually. We had a huge deck in the backyard overlooking the woods, and a decently large backyard. We even had a little fish pond and above-ground swimming pool.
Cool.
This was on a Thursday night. I remember
Fancy
because I had
living.
Now you're
conversations
just
with
bragging.
friends about plans for the weekend that day. This was in July of 2013.
And a tennis court and a
And we got a
PlayStation.
couple
Jack
orbs in
smoking
this
weed with
picture
my
right
speaker
now.
playing music.
Yeah.
That's about the time it started. I thought I heard a voice from out in the woods.
Oh yeah, we have a
I
volleyball
lowered
court.
the music and listened a little bit.
But anyway,
It didn't repeat, so I raised it back up.
It's fenced
The
in.
music was loud again. I heard a voice from out in the woods again. This time I turned the music off completely and listened for longer. There was a voice calling from the woods again, confirming I wasn't just hearing things.
Nope.
It was a male's voice, saying, "Hey, over here."
Nope.
He was kind of distant, but not too far. The woods were anywhere from 20 to 30 yards away from the deck.
could have been Joe
That's
and
where the
Cody
voice
from
was
Dual
coming
Survival.
from. I didn't
don't
think in
know.
a million years it was someone
Why would
calling
they
out
be
for me,
in
though. Rather
Never
be
mind.
trekking through the
They
woods.
be
Manhunts or
everywhere.
something.
Never mind.
The voice called out again.
They got dropped
"Hey,
off in the
over here,
mountains
we need
and
help."
ended up in their
This
backyard.
time I realized the voice was too deep to be a kid. And when a voice yells out, "We need help," obviously that'll always be slightly concerning.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit uncomfortable now, because now I was questioning if these yells were directed at me. Now I heard the voice yell, "Straight in front of you, please come help us." And the voice was coming from straight in front of me in the woods.
Nope.
Now I had a feeling this was directed at me.
Nope.
I reluctantly called back, "Who is that?" And they responded, "We just need help, we're stuck in the woods."
Nope.
I called back, "What does that mean?"
Well, no, you're
And
not.
the voice replied back, "Just please come help, straight in front of
Nope.
you." I got out from my seat, walked down the steps of the deck onto the grass,
Red
and proceeded
flag.
towards the woods. I called out, "I'm coming, where are you?"
That's not a good
bad
idea.
Replied
idea.
instantly, "Right in front of you, I see you." I replied back, "Wait, are you alone or with someone?" There was no answer this time. I stopped in my tracks about halfway towards the woods. I
Caught.
had a bad feeling in my gut about this. I started walking backwards, back towards the house and the deck.
Run.
I didn't even want to turn my back to the woods, because it took me that long to realize there was something very suspicious about this situation.
Took you
I
that
made
long
it
to
back to the
realize?
Yeah,
deck, and the voice
you ain't
didn't
showing
say
anything.
anything else.
Come on,
If
man.
they truly saw me and this was real, they would have said something like, "Where are you going?" at the very least. They knew I was onto the situation.
Run.
Who even knows how many people were in there? Could have been one, could have been three. All I know is getting stuck in the woods makes absolutely no sense, especially if he or they were able to literally see me. Like what? Did their shirt get caught on a branch? I went inside the house and locked all the
That's,
doors
I'm
just
sure,
to be
what it
safe.
was.
I chilled in my living room for a bit, still high, and I think that's why I was more trusting at first. Because
Still
of how
high.
high and relaxed I was.
It's no big
I
deal.
heard the voice again from outside, closer now. Definitely in the backyard and not the woods anymore. I heard splashing of water. It could have been the pool or the pond.
Pond would be good for you.
I hurried to the window to see. I didn't see anyone at first.
Curiosity killed
Gotta
the
watch
cat.
The voice
Caddyshack
called,
for that
"I
reference.
see you," with a laugh. I noticed him. It was one guy, at least one guy visible. He was hidden behind the pool on the other side, and I could only see his head. It was just too dark to make out anything besides his dark, medium-length hair. I closed the blinds and tried to
Dial
ignore him. Maybe he
911.
lose
Yeah, what's up
interest
with
if he
these
saw I
people?
wasn't entertaining him.
Like, if you ain't got
He
a
was
gun,
probably a sick, deranged person who enjoyed messing with people.
call
So I
911,
didn't
man.
want to give him what he wanted.
Even if you
But
do,
my breaking point
let
was
them
when there
know.
was a horrible, aggressive banging on the window where I had just closed the blinds.
Oh, yeah.
On the other
See,
side, the guy was screaming help. I screamed at the top of my
You can
lungs
call
to
a
fuck off, you freak.
ambulance
The
or a
police are
hearse.
coming.
Probably need the
See.
I
hearse.
screamed it over and over,
The
trying to
police are
make myself
coming.
sound crazier than him. I heard him start to laugh on the other side of the glass. His laughing started to fade away as I assume he walked away. I sat back down on the couch, trembling, shaking, out of breath. I sat there for a while, and it seemed like the guy had really given up. I still got a good night's sleep that night because
I'm sure you
weed helps
did.
me sleep. I wonder if I would have handled that situation any differently if I wasn't high, though.
Yeah,
Probably.
The
probably.
situation made me
Yeah.
more paranoid about who I opened my door to.
Well, if that's all it was, then yeah, you'd probably still been in trouble. Because you need to be armed. I don't care if it's a baseball bat. People,
Something.
home defense, you must have it.
I'm 23 years old.
You defend
I live
your
at
home.
with my parents still. One day they were both not home, and I was outside playing basketball in the front yard. At some point while I was playing, I looked up at one of our upstairs windows and saw a woman standing there. Not my mom, not my sister. It was a random woman. I guess when she saw me looking at her, she dipped away from the window. When I went inside and upstairs to check the lounge room, she wasn't anywhere. I checked every single room I could, every bedroom, the bathroom, every closet.
Well, at
And
least
I
you had a
checked the
basketball. You
downstairs,
could have
which
chunked at
included
her.
the living room, kitchen, dining room, one bedroom,
Anything.
and more closets. Finally, I checked the basement, and I highly doubted she could be down there. It's a small basement with a couple couches, a bar, and 2 closets. There weren't many places for someone to hide, but
No, just
When I
two
opened the
closet,
second
a
closet door,
lounge room,
I
and
was incredibly
a
scared,
bar.
as I didn't know of any other places someone could be hiding in the house. This was the last unchecked spot that I could think of. I yanked the door open as if I were ripping off a band-aid, and like I did with the closet before this one, I right away pushed myself into the closet just in case that woman was in there and I'd have the jump on her. But all I pushed myself into was a bunch of coats and coat hangers. I was so confused. I wasn't going to question my sanity though. I definitely saw that woman and I knew it. It wasn't the kind of thing you would just so vividly imagine. I went back to the middle floor and screamed very loud that whoever was in the house needs to get the F out. I actually screamed so loud that our next door neighbor came over and asked if I was okay. I told him
Obviously
that I literally
not.
just saw a woman at our upstairs window watching me play basketball. He came in and helped me search again. When we couldn't find her, I was left to assume that she snuck out through the back door, which I did unlock after all when I went to grab the basketball from the yard. So my neighbor left. I locked all the doors, called my parents, and told them the crazy story, and they weren't too thrilled. But they asked me to make sure nothing was stolen. I did just that, and luckily it seemed anything that was worth something was still in place. So now fast forward to that night.
Oh,
I went
there's
to
more.
sleep after checking the house one more time just for peace of mind.
She was under his
It was
bed.
hard to
Under,
fall
at the
asleep.
foot
though.
of his bed.
My mind was racing for obvious reasons. Most people can't relate to seeing a stranger at their window inside of their house. But my restlessness helped me out in this situation, and here's why. I was finally starting to drift away slightly. Then I heard some noises from the other side of me. I had the fan on above me, so the room wasn't dead silent, and that's why I didn't immediately turn to my other side at the first sound I heard.
I
But
would.
the sound started to sound human-like.
Oh no.
I turned to my other side.
What is human
And
like?
there she was,
Oh
getting
no.
out from under my bed.
Oh, you
She
were
stood
right.
up tall above the bed, and I screamed so loud, louder than earlier before. I jumped out of my bed and tackled her to the floor.
Oh,
and
God.
had my hand
That's
around
what
her
I'm talking
throat,
about.
My
asking her
man.
who she was. My doorbell rang. My neighbor again.
Who are
I picked
you?
the tall, dirty-looking woman up off the floor and dragged her to the front door with me.
I told
She
you.
struggled
Man.
and
I
scratched
told
at me.
you. Did I
I
not
still
tell
have
you?
two scars on
I
my
told
right
you.
arm from
I
her
told you.
claws. I opened my front door to my neighbor again, and he let himself in and helped me restrain the woman. This was when I called the police. The whole time we waited for the police, the woman was screaming and cursing at my neighbor and I, threatening us too. The best way to put it, she looked and acted like a meth head currently suffering from withdrawals.
Oh, well, probably
When the
is.
police
Yeah,
arrived,
odds are probably
one of
in
the
your favor
officers
there.
knew exactly who the woman was. They had dealt with her multiple times before.
Sweet.
Her name was conveniently Karen. It was satisfying to watch her be
Convenient.
brought into the back of the police car. I let my neighbor know how grateful I was for him coming so quickly to help. And that night, my mind continued to race. But instead of being completely freaked out, which I still was a little, I felt this overwhelming feeling of satisfaction.
Well, yeah, I
I
would
can't
too.
fully explain why.
Because you were a man.
Yeah. I took that
You
bitch
just
down.
straight up just
She
like
got
tackled
my
that
bed.
woman.
I
Nah. No.
No, you don't get in my bed.
No.
So I tackled her to the ground and strangled her. I slept like a baby.
Some great satisfaction fueled me.
I ain't slept that hard in years. I went to bed talking about, whew.
Man, his adrenaline was like,
I know how Rick James feels every night he goes to sleep. It's just empowerment. It's just a rest.
I
My
rest.
body rest. After you tackle and
a
choke
meth head.
a crazy meth head in your bed.
Named Karen. Conveniently named Karen. Oh God, that was the best one.
I think the most 5 disturbing things about these stories is not one of them had any sort of ammunition
Yeah, like who doesn't have a gun?
or even a baseball bat. Or, I mean, some of them were like, I'm 14 years old. Hey, I was 14 years old at one point too.
Yeah.
Bet your ass I had a baseball bat in my bedroom somewhere.
Don't know.
And if I heard noises, me and Louisville Slugger are gonna go check things out.
Don't know.
So there was a serious lack of it. All these stories from up north.
It gotta be.
I was a 14-year-old kid living in Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, because you don't get, I was a 14-year-old kid living in Dallas, Texas,
Yeah.
and somebody was in my backyard and screaming out and acting a fool. I mean, these stories would not be as entertaining because they would end much quicker.
Yeah, seriously, like they wouldn't even be on here because it's like, and then I shot him.
Yeah.
You know?
This is America. These are the rights you have per our Constitution.
To defend your house, my dude.
You have the right to defend your
God.
home. And it seems like every time somebody had a home break-in or a burglar, it was almost like, I ain't coming out there. Just letting you know, you got to come in here, but I'm not coming out there. Which just tells the criminal, okay,
Okay.
you ain't doing nothing.
Might
I don't
as
see
well.
blue lights, ain't nobody called a cop. God forbid somebody picks up and calls 911. So,
Yeah, seriously, like who does that, right?
yeah, so yeah.
Clearly not these guys.
Yeah, what is this, just like something where the guy goes on Reddit, starts reading stories that he saw there where people
Yeah,
are
because
sharing?
that's kind of like, did they send him these stories or is this like Reddit stories? Because I didn't have any information. They just said, hey, you need to check out Mr. Nightmare. That name sounds cool. Let's do that.
And if that's anything you take away from these stories and you take away from the Brodown tonight, if you ain't got a baseball bat at the minimum,
Yeah, like go to your local academy.
go to Walmart. I don't care. Just,
Does Walmart sell bats?
I'm sure you can probably find a bat. You can find a tire iron. You can find something. You can find something.
Solid.
Yeah, it won't cost you a lot of money, and you can put it next to your bed, or
You could literally grab a 2x4 and just take that.
yeah. It's bulky though, but if you get you a good, especially like a T-ball, get one of them little T-ball kids.
Oh, yeah.
You know, bats probably cost you $10.
Worth it.
In a pinch, ain't nobody sticking their head through my door, because that's all that's going to make it through that door. The rest of it's not coming in. Tell us your stories.
Yeah.
I know you guys, if you came here to watch this, it's probably because you had something that made you fascinated in this sort of thing, so you probably have a story. Put it in the comments.
Or go to our Discord
Definitely go to our Discord.
and drop the story there. There is a limit of like 900 characters. You can definitely put a story in there.
Your 5 best stories.
5 best stories.
We'll
You're on
read
a
'em.
mission, homework.
We'll do a Mr. Nightmare ourselves. You know, I can do this. This is something that's easy.
I mean, and he's got the voice for it, so he'd be all about it.
Like, share,
Subscribe.
do the thing.
Do the thing.
And until the next time, guys, as always, come at me, bro.
The Brodown is over! Let's bro out!